guess, I don't know if you call this a pulpit or what do you call it, music stand? Anyway, what this is. And I think it gave everybody a false sense of hope that they didn't have to hear me today. That's what I was trying to do about sheeping. Anyway, guys, today we're talking about our last part of Secrets of Faith, part 6. And it's about hopeful faith. And I know I asked that at the beginning. How many of you guys could really stand to have more hope in your life? How many of you guys need some hope? You know, sometimes I say, how many do we need encouragement or whatever? But we need this hope. And it's funny, we kind of do a teasing with each other. Or it's when we're doing things or whatever, they say, hey, good job, good praise and worship, or good sermon, good job, way to go. And we always, it's like, well, I just never gave up. I just never gave up. Have you ever felt like giving up? Have you ever felt like quitting? It seems like in today's society, what we want to do is just give up. We just, it's too hard, I might as well leave. It's too much, I might as well quit. I can't handle all the stress. I can't handle all the pressure. It's just way too much. I might as well quit. I might as well give up. But I'm talking today about hope. This hope that keeps you going. This hope that you don't give up on. This hope that will help you continue day by day. You wake up with a sense of purpose. You wake up with a sense that there is something I need to accomplish. And I know many times in our life, when we're young or whatever, we have these big, elaborate dreams like, someday I'm going to be a fireman. Or someday I'm going to be a millionaire. Or someday I'm going to accomplish this. Someday I'm going to write that book. And it's like just someday, and it always just seems like it's just out of reach. What do we do then on that day when it is within reach? When it is within reach, what do we do? Do we grab it, or is our hope gone? Do we pursue new hopes? What do we do? We keep thinking, well, someday. But I'm telling you, today's that day. I want to read Matthew chapter 9, verse 29. Jesus is talking. He says this. He goes, according to your faith will it be done unto you. In other words, Jesus says that the size of your faith matters. That the size of your faith determines the size of your life. So if you want a larger than life, you got to have a larger than life faith. And we're talking about this hopeful life. So we're talking about hope. Now what gives us that hope? I mean, how do you have a hope-filled life? How do you have that confident assurance that what you hope for is going to happen? Now, I want to define hope. Okay? Today, what hope is, the best definition of hope is a confident trust. Earlier we've been defining faith as a confident assurance. Hope is a confident trust. You see what I mean? It's a confident trust because, faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. So how do we have this hope-filled life? How is our life going to help us create hope? How can we say we do have hope? How do we say even when we seem to be down and out, how do we establish that hope? So I kind of want to share with you, I kind of want to digress a little bit and share with you a little bit of my story and then share a little bit of Joseph. When Chris and I, when we talk to couples that want to get married, part of our marriage counseling that we ask is you already have ideas in your mind about what marriage is like and what to expect. Our question that we ask them is, what is the deal breaker? What is the deal breaker? We learned that through, when we were buying houses, it's like, well, it doesn't have a fireplace, that's it, we're not going to buy the house. So obviously there's something that your spouse could do that would break the deal in marriage. There is. And so I didn't realize Krista had a deal breaker when we got married. We never were asked that question. And I knew, beyond a shadow of a doubt, when I was 18 years old, that I was called to preach. That I was called to be a pastor. That's what I knew God called me to do. So all of a sudden, every day, I had this hope. I had this dream that I would become a pastor of a church. And every day I would do something different. I mean, I would read all these books. I'd read the Bible cover to cover. I'd listen to seminars. I'd go to seminars. I'd do everything. Every day I would do something that would help me one day become a pastor. I had this hope. I had this dream. 4 years later, I meet Krista. And Krista sees a guy that has a dream. And I told her, I mean, when I found out we were getting closer in our relationship and falling in love, I told her, I said, Krista, I got to be honest with you. My passion is ministry. And I know God's called me to be a preacher. She liked that. I mean, I would love it if my daughter fell in love with some guy and they told her, hey, I'm called to be a minister. I would love it because I know his heart's with God. But I told her, I said, right now, right now it's time to bail if you're going to bail. I don't want you to break my heart any worse. And she goes, no, you got me. You had me at hello. That's what she said.
Aww.
Wow. Don't make me start telling jokes, okay? Anyway, and we moved. Some of you guys know my story. Some of you don't. We were youth pastors, and then in 2000 we moved to Springfield, Missouri, and started a church there for about 2 years. That church never got off the ground. And we come back, and I thought at that time that, man, God's fulfilling my dream. He's fulfilling my purpose. He's fulfilling my calling. I'm so excited, only to have to shut the doors. I mean, we had a big sign called Family Life Church side of our house that was just getting rained on and destroyed when we moved back. We just never had another place to hang it up. Little by little, Krista saw this flame, this flicker, this dream, this hope that I had start to die out. That was her deal breaker. She married a guy that had a dream. She married a guy that had a purpose. She married a guy that knew what he wanted in life and was doing what it took to make it happen. And then when she saw that instead, this husband that she married was becoming a bum, really didn't have any passion in life anymore, she didn't want that. Now, I'm not saying, she threatened to leave or pack her bags or whatever, but she let me know that this was not who she married. You see what I mean? I lost hope. It even got down to the point, some of you guys might have been in my office. You see all these books that I've got in there that I'm a book fanatic. I love books. I love to buy books. Anyway, that's a different story, but I was about to get rid of all of those books, commentaries, Bibles, everything, just because I thought God called me to preach. Well, to make a long story short, through some God dealing with me moments in my life, that flame came back on. And I was reignited with that passion. That, there is hope. God's not finished with me. God's not through. God is still working in my life. And praise God for that. She didn't give up on me. But it seems like times in our life, we'll try to do something and then we'll have struggles. We'll want to follow God. We'll want to make a commitment to something. Next thing you know, we are being hammered on every side of life. And we feel like, well, where's my passion? Where's my hope? But we have this hope that helps us persevere. We have this hope that helps us carry on. And I'm telling you, inside every one of us here today, there is a hope within you. There is a dream. There is a God-given dream, a God-given passion that is within you that gives you this hope. And sometimes you don't see this hope in this life, but you see it in the next. Because I know we've been reading in Hebrews chapter 11 over these past 6 weeks, and I want to read the last 2 verses. Verse 39. In Hebrews chapter 11, it says, "These were all commended for their faith." Now, when he talks about these, he's talking about Abraham, he's talking about Moses, he's talking about Joseph, he's talking about Samson, he's talking about Gideon. He's talking about all these, this roll call of faith in Hebrews chapter 11. And he's saying all of these were commended for their faith, yet, get this, none of them received what had been promised. They had this faith. Every day they were fighting for something. And yet, get this, yet none of them received what had been promised. God had planned, get this, something better. God had planned something better for us, so that only together with us would they be made perfect. You see what I mean? I mean, you have this hope. And it's something better. You know, whatever you dream here on life, don't you think God even has a bigger dream for you in heaven? You know, C.S. Lewis said it this way. He goes, you know, aim for heaven and you get the earth thrown in. Aim for just the earth and you miss them both. So what is it that we have that we're looking for beyond? What is this big hope that we have? And how do we live this hope-filled life? So I want to tell you another story. It's in Genesis chapter 37 through chapter 50. Okay, I hope you guys have time. That is 14 verses. Alright, so I hope you guys have all the time in the world. Luckily, this is the 3rd service, so there's no service after this. So if you guys need to get another fresh pot of coffee or whatever, we will read all 14 verses, or chapters. Y'all look at me like you don't believe me. No, but, okay, let me ask you this. So how many of you guys are familiar with the story of Joseph? Most of you are? Okay. So I don't have to go into great detail, but you know, Joseph was Jacob's son. His mom was Rachel. And Jacob had loved Rachel so much, and it showed. His other brothers were jealous of him. And Joseph has this dream. I mean, even his dad gave him this coat of many colors to kind of set him apart. Joseph has this dream about these about the grain, and one of the bushels stands higher than the others, and the others are kneeling down to him. And then he has a dream about the sun, the moon, and the stars all bowing down to him. And his father goes, "Really?" And I mean, his brothers are mad, like, "Really, you think we're going to bow down to you?" And his father just says, "No, you know, bull, you know, that's a good dream, but it's not going to happen. There's no way." And his brothers are getting jealous. And so when Joseph goes to go check on his brothers who are tending the sheep, they say, "Hey, let's kill him." Well, luckily they don't kill him. They throw him. They sell him to some Ishmaelites that are coming by, and he's then a slave in Potiphar's house. Okay? Now, what you realize in this story is that God is always with Joseph. Keep that in mind. No matter what seems to be struggling you today or tomorrow, keep in mind God is always with you. And Potiphar recognized Joseph's leadership. He recognized something special about Joseph, that no matter what Joseph did, he succeeded in it because God was with him. And he was second in command in Potiphar's house. The only thing Potiphar kept away from Joseph was his wife. And yet Potiphar's wife tried to seduce Joseph. And so she trapped him one day while he was in the house, and she grabbed him, and he flees to get away. Yet she grabbed his cloak. He leaves his coat behind and runs. And she starts screaming and then falsely accuses him. Saying, look at this Hebrew slave you brought into this house coming here and try to rape me. And Potiphar's upset, he throws him in jail. Now while he's in jail, there's the chief cupbearer and the chief baker for Pharaoh. And they each have a dream. And get this, okay, during this time while Joseph was in prison, guess what? The warden saw something special about Joseph, that Joseph was in charge of all the other prisoners. That the warden didn't even have to show up to work that day because he knew he could trust Joseph to take care of his job. And these two have a dream. And the first, the cupbearer tells him his dream, and Joseph says, well, what's going to happen? You're going to be reestablished to the honor you had as the chief cupbearer to Pharaoh. And the baker goes, wow. He gave him a favorable interpretation. Here's my dream. Joseph says, oh, you're going to die. Bummer. Wish I hadn't told you my dream then. And then it happened. Okay? The chief cupbearer was brought back to prominence as the chief cupbearer with Pharaoh, and the baker was put to death. Joseph told him, he goes, hey, when you get set free, please tell Pharaoh about me and tell them to help me get out of here. Well, it wasn't until sometime later Pharaoh had a dream, and nobody could interpret that dream, except finally now the chief cupbearer remembered, oh yeah, Joseph, that Hebrew slave, could interpret dreams. He interpreted my dreams and it came to pass. So they claimed Joseph, put him in front of Pharaoh, and Pharaoh tells him his dream. Joseph says, I can't interpret dreams, it's only through God. But he says, this is what it is. There's going to be 7 years of feast. There's going to be 7 years of harvest, a bountiful harvest. And after 7 years, there's going to be famine. He says, so go ahead and take advantage of these first 7 years. Don't you wish sometimes God would tell you that, hey, 7 years is going to be good, and after that 7 years is going to be tough? Wouldn't you have been more prepared in that 7 years? Huh? But so it happened. And they just had all kinds of grain. Everything was stored up. Joseph knew. And what's funny is after that, after he interpreted Pharaoh's dream, he says, you need to put somebody in charge that knows what they're doing. And guess who he put in charge? Joseph. Now, here's Joseph, that was a Hebrew slave, is now second in command in all of Egypt. The only one that has more authority than Joseph is Pharaoh himself. Now that's pretty impressive. You look at Joseph's life, being thrown in prison, being falsely accused. Don't you think there were times he was questioning his calling? Don't you think there were times he was questioning, why is God doing this to me? Don't you think there's times he was hoping that he could just get rid of it all, just quit and leave and just give up? But he didn't. For some reason, he had this dream, he had this hope, he had this confident trust in God that one day this would happen. And so he's second in command, the famine hits, and guess what happens? His brothers, we can't forget about them. The ones that sold him and lied to their dad that he was dead. They come to Egypt because they hear Egypt has plenty of grain. Somebody had planned ahead. And what happens? His brothers come in. They see this Pharaoh, almost king, and they all bow down to him. They're all bowing down to him. You know what Joseph does? He goes, "Oh yeah, told ya you would bow in front of me. I'm in charge." All right, it had a better reaction. But you know, he told me, he said, you know, you guys didn't think that. You said you'd never bow in front of me. Guess what? Now you're bowing in front of me. Nanny, nanny, boo-boo. Kiss it. No, he didn't really say that. I just want to make sure you guys are paying attention. Okay? I mean, it might be in the New Living Translation. I don't know, but it's not. I'm teasing, okay? But anyway, but no, Joseph shows compassion on them. He says, guys, I know this is what happened. I know you guys sold me. I know you guys meant it for bad. I know you guys were jealous. I know you guys didn't like what I was doing. You guys didn't like the fact I had the dream. You guys thought I was better than you. You thought all this. You sold me into slavery. But guess what? All of this, what you intended for bad, God used it for good. And now we're in charge and we're able to save our family. That's forgiveness. That's love. That's grace. It's because of what God has done. And he had this faith. He had this hope of what God's called him to do. So I want to ask you guys, all right, so 3 things to have a hope-filled life. And then we'll close with that, or these 3 things. Number 1, don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on yourself. Romans chapter 8:31 says that if God is for us, who can ever be against us? And look at Philippians chapter 3, verse 13 and 14. It says, I am still not all I should be, but I am focusing all my energies on this one thing, forgetting the past and looking forward to what lies ahead. I strain to reach the end of the race and receive the prize for which God, through Christ Jesus, is calling us up to heaven. Joseph never gave up on himself. He knew God was with him. Guys, we need to have that confident trust in our lives to know God's with us. And if God be for us, who can be against us? So keep that in mind. And then the second one is to live a hopeful life is don't give up on others. I'm so glad Krista did not give up on me. Joseph did not give up on his brothers. As a matter of fact, verse 45, he says, I will take care of you, for there is still 5 years of famine ahead of us. He still took care of his family. How many of you guys know that, sometimes you'll have a brother, sister, mom, dad, aunt, uncle that will hack you off and you choose never to talk to them again. Or they're quote-unquote dead to me. Huh? We do that. We don't have forgiveness. We give up on them. You know, I was reading this book about difficult relationships. And have you ever noticed that sometimes you're in a difficult relationship yet they won't go away? It's like God's trying to grow you to do something. God still has them in your life to help you grow, but don't give up on them. Joseph probably, he probably would have been happy to have never seen his brothers again. Maybe. I don't know. I know his brothers were terrified when they realized it was Joseph. I know they were terrified. Because they thought, man, here we sold him, we didn't trust him, we didn't like him, and now he's in charge. He could do to us whatever he wanted and not have any repercussions, not have any consequences. John chapter 13, in there he says, love each other just as I have loved you. And then the last one, don't give up on God. Don't give up on God. Guys, I've met people that have given up on God. It's not a lovely sight at all. It's one of the saddest things I think I've ever seen in my life. They lost hope. Genesis chapter 50, Joseph says, as far as I'm concerned, God used for good what you meant for evil. In other words, you guys might have meant evil, but God's the one that's in control. God's the one that's taking care of us. God's the one that's doing all this. See, Joseph had to recognize that God was with him. And God was with him in everything he did. So when things go wrong, as it sometimes will, and the road you're traveling seems all uphill, and funds are high and debts are low, don't give up. I can't remember the rest of it. Don't give up on God. You know, think about it. Sometimes we live in a society that's like when things go wrong, we think it's our fault. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But I guarantee you, when you're going to do something for God, you're going to be hammered on every side. When you decide you're going to commit to something, when you decide to give your life to Christ, when you decide you're going to commit to the church, when you decide you're going to start teaching, when you decide that you and your family are going to get committed, guess what? You are going to be hammered on every side imaginable. There's going to be some stupid things that you never saw coming because you're now starting to tread on the enemy's territory. And the devil does not like it when you're going to commit to God. And he will do everything to keep you from committing. Have you noticed that? Or am I the only one that seems to be in a spiritual battle when God's telling me to go to the next level? When God says, hey Steve, I need you to do this now. And I know the devil says that he thinks that if he can make us quit, he's won the battle. And he will do everything to make us quit, to lose that hope, to lose that confident trust in God. But guys, there's two things that I just want to share with you right now. Is that, number one, is this: you can live for 14 days without food. You can live 3 days without water. You can live 5 minutes without air. But you cannot live for 1 second without hope. Will you bow your heads with me? Philippians chapter 1 verse 6 says, I am confident that God, who began the good work within you, will continue to work until it's finally finished on that day when Christ Jesus comes back.